You're now listening to the Peach Pundit Podcast, where we are expressing our own personal opinions. These views may not reflect the opinions of those whom we may be professionally affiliated.
I guess we're getting a double take of the intro there. I am Jason Pye. Welcome back to the Peach Pundit Podcast. Joined by Scott Turner this week. We are without Buzz Brockway, who is
Buzz, man.
Poor Buzz.
We got to lift Buzz up. Yeah.
I guess our intro music reminds us to let you know that we are aware of our technical difficulties last week, and there was nothing we could. We're still
so weird.
It was so weird. We're using a program called Riverside to record the podcast. We used to use Zoom, and we would just
sound quality was terrible.
Sound quality was terrible. We would extract the file. It took the whole process from. Obviously, there's the time we do to record the podcast, time we take to record the podcast, which, anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. And then, uploading, getting all the stuff written. It takes about 3 hours to do all that stuff.
Right.
So this makes it a little bit easier for us, but we're still working out the kinks and learning the service. And
yes.
We apologize for the technical difficulties. There's little we can do about it, but we are here. We are without Buzz. It's Scott and me, and we have a little bit to discuss. Not a huge agenda, but I think first things first that we need to tackle is the alleged, well, not just alleged, the swatting incident that happened to Kandiss Taylor recently, and we poked some fun at her last week about some things she had said, especially related to the Georgia Guidestones. But swatting ain't no joke. Scott.
No. So she posted around 2 a.m. today a video where she just goes off about how she had been swatted, and Fox 5 in Atlanta verified that it was true. It actually did happen. The Appling County Sheriff's Department did respond to a call where she had, somebody had represented a female at that address who had shot and murdered her husband, and in a panic type event. And the Appling County Sheriff the Sheriff's Department recognizing that was Kandiss Taylor's home, didn't go in full guns blazing, but did show up ready for what could have been a really bad situation, and terrorized her and her family. And, we make fun of Kandiss a lot here on this podcast, but that's not cool, right? There's no room for that in our political discourse. If you're the person who did that, shame on you. That's disgusting. There are plenty of things that can be said about Kandiss Taylor, but this is not fair to her or her family. And frankly, for anybody who decides they want to run for office, these types of actions are anti-democratic, they're anti-American, and they're disgusting. And I can't condemn it strongly enough. And so, even though I don't like Kandiss very much, I feel sorry for her in this instance, and I'm sorry that it happened to her family. I wish we lived in a time where something like that didn't happen. But these times are full of darkness, and that's just problematic or emblematic of the type of struggle we're actually in.
And there was another, and let me just say, I agree with Scott. And while I personally dislike Kandiss Taylor's positions and rhetoric and her accent, most notably, everyone is entitled to their views, and I don't. I'm not. I know we talk about cancel culture. I think there are some people in society who deserve to be canceled, but like racists and white nationalists and so on and so forth. But I also am very well aware of any time speech is suppressed, it just creates a demand for what's being said. And that demand often goes underground. And, we need to be really careful about who we're penalizing in the public sphere in the marketplace of ideas, even if it's a marketplace of some horrible ideas, who are penalizing. Just this past weekend, I was reading the news and read that Steve Bannon's home here in Washington, D.C. was also subject of a SWAT incident. He's up. His home is off I think second and A, here in DC, right behind the Supreme Court. And that's no joke. And I think even our own, or our good friend Eric Erickson has been subject to a swatting incident in the past. So let's all collectively pull our heads out of our asses and
somebody could die, Jason.
Yeah. People have died. I think people have
somebody
died in these incidents. Let's just be careful when there are ways to criticize people with whom you disagree. That is not a way to do it. So,
right.
Moving along to our agenda, which I think is kind of fun. So there's some Herschel Walker news. He, by the way, has said he is ready to debate. So, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, sounds like it.
But he has he's reconfigured in the past week. He's reconfigured his campaign team. He's gotten high-profile Georgia Republican Party activists to stick by him, despite the leaks that we mentioned last week from his campaign, or allegedly from his campaign. And polling shows him running neck and neck with Raphael Warnock. Scott,
the Democrat poll has him 2 points ahead.
Yeah, I mean, typically what I say with internal polls is add 6 points. So, but we'll see. I mean, I think the nationally, I don't think it's going to be the bloodbath that people expect it to be, because the generic ballot congressional polls are showing a pretty close race, and nobody I know expects Republicans. Nobody who's not a hard partisan expects Republicans to take the Senate. That said, winning Georgia would be the road to that.
Right.
So,
so Herschel's campaign has gotten all kinds of bad press, but the question, I guess, is, does it matter, right? So he's in Hall County over the weekend. Our friend Raul Bali, who is with Georgia Public Broadcasting out of Atlanta, tried to go to the event. The event was advertised as open to all, but when Raul showed up, they said, "No, sir, no press. You're not allowed to be here," and they kicked him out. So Raul couldn't cover Herschel's speech to the Hall County Republican Party. And I guess at that meeting, as well as others, he makes this comment about floating air, right? Like the air from China floats over here. We clean it up. It floats back over there. And so the media has jumped all over that. And as I'm reading the articles about it, all I can think of is, I'm paying a lot of money for bacon, right? And the media wants to talk about Herschel Walker and floating air from China. And I'm like, you guys don't get it, right? I mean, do you think it matters? Because the media is just, Herschel Walker is embarrassing the hell out of himself. And I really don't care. I think that he's embarrassing himself.
I mean, I also think, you have when you ran for office, you had an R next to your name. And Scott, I mean, I don't mean to be mean to you here, but like, you play on the red team. So I think I did play on the red team. But I also think you're independent minded enough to know when someone is not living up to expectations. I think we're going to.
I expect Herschel Walker to not be polished. I expect him to not be up on the issues. But does it outweigh the economic agenda that would be supported by Raphael Warnock?
Yeah, no, and that's ultimately the question, and but there's a couple of things I want to say here. I was having a conversation because I've had like the most crazy busy day today. I barely had time to come up for air, and this is the first real break I've gotten all day. And we were talking. This friend of mine who works on the Senate side, we had coffee this morning, and she was saying that we were talking about the Dobbs case, and I was saying, a lot of people don't understand what Clarence Thomas was saying in his concurrence. And do I think Clarence Thomas wants to revisit some of those issues that he mentioned? Yes, I do. But what he was talking about wasn't specifically those issues. He was talking about the doctrine of substantive due process. And I get that there are even lawyers who don't know what substantive due process is and how we incorporate rights against the states and so on and so forth. So I get that. But that is if you're interested in constitutional law, you know that stuff. And if you're a voter, I would hope you would know the difference of how the basics of economics, and that when government spends the amount of money it has spent in response to COVID-19 and pumping $6 trillion into the economy, that it's going to have an adverse impact on the economy at some point in time. And that adverse impact is going to be inflation. And then the Fed didn't manage it well enough and didn't raise interest rates quickly enough. So that's where you get this problem. And, but here's the thing. Walker's going to say the right things, and the NRSC and outside groups are going to point out that Warnock voted for all this spending or at least not all this, but some of the spending. The most recent bill, he voted for the Biden recovery bill back in February or March of last year. They're going to point that out, and mention that he supports higher spending and all this stuff, and that he's going to contribute to inflation. Walker's going to say the right things, but at the end of the day, Warnock is very good at selling his personality. He is a likable guy, and Walker is going to be branded as crazy. And I'm not personally saying he is crazy. I'm saying he's going to be branded that way. And if he doesn't start to define himself to voters now, and if he waits too long, Warnock's going to do it for him. And the media is going to do it for him. Yeah. And he's going to have a really hard time walking that back. Last week we mentioned the ads that we've seen. The ad I've seen is an ad from Tim Scott's PAC. That's the ad I've seen. Walker has to get on the air because Warnock already is. Walker has to get on the air. He can't wait until after Labor Day. He's got to get on the air now. And the longer he waits, the worse his chances are going to be. And I think it is neck and neck right now. When we talked about that poll that came out from Quinnipiac, I didn't buy it then. That I said at the time, subtract 5 points. Right. But I'm telling you right now, if Walker doesn't begin to define himself and lets Warnock in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and other media outlets across the country, national media outlets, define him, it's going to be bad.
I don't know. I don't know that. I just don't know if it matters. But to your point about him getting out there, I think there have been some warning signs, some red flags out of his campaign. And I think the shakeup this week of him going and announcing some of these high profile, he's got people who've worked for Lindsey Graham on his team now. He's got some high powered fundraisers and people who are familiar with messaging, especially here in Georgia, that he's hired to put on his team. I think that's a good sign.
Yeah.
I think he probably needed a reset based upon the stuff that came out of the Daily Beast about his character and the attacks on his character from within his own campaign. So I think that's a good sign. I think, like I said last week, if I were him, I would be looking at who I'm firing. And it sounds like he took the reins there and decided he was going to make some personnel changes within his campaign. That being said, the Quinnipiac poll had him down big. And the Democrat internal poll has him leading by 2.
Yeah, and Data for Progress,
he's not in terrible shape.
Yeah, and Data for Progress, who did that poll, is pretty reliable. I remember I've used their data in the past on other things I've worked on. But I mean, I would say take the 6 points I said away because they are actually pretty good and they tend to have their stuff down. So, I mean, look, Walker. I think Walker has an uphill climb. not uphill climb. Excuse me. He's going to be at a fundraising disadvantage because one of the other things we're supposed to discuss is that Warnock has raised $17.2 million between April and June. That's a significant haul. Not quite Stacey Abrams' level of money where she raised $22 million, but 17.2 is pretty good. And I think from that perspective, he's going to need a lot of outside money to come into Georgia. And I said it last week and I'll repeat it again. Money doesn't necessarily win elections. Yes, you have to have money to win an election, but you can be outraised or be at a cash disadvantage and still win an election. You look at some races last year, or in 2020, like Tillis's race in North Carolina or Graham's race in South Carolina, McConnell, Collins, all four of those folks were outspent by both their opponents and by outside groups, and they still all won. Right. It doesn't mean anything, but Walker needs to up his game here.
I think he is. But the $17 million for Warnock in 3 months is a scary number. We have seen what Warnock can do when he is marketing himself. The puppy commercials, the puppy poo commercials, were brilliant and touched a nerve for folks here in Georgia. So and then the opening salvo he's had is him running around a track saying, if we were on here, Herschel would beat me, but we're not on this track. We're in real life. That's a good message too. So I think I'm more afraid of the effectiveness of a Raphael Warnock campaign than I am of a Stacey Abrams campaign, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense.
Because Warnock has shown that he's deft at communicating to the masses far better than Stacey is. So I believe there is cause for concern. I'm not overly concerned. I think I have a mild amount of concern, but I think he's doing the right things right now and hiring a good team to put around him who can help him. And he needs help. Listen, I've never hidden from the fact that Herschel Walker is going to need help to be a U.S. Senator. He's not doing that job on the knowledge and experience that he brings to the table on his own. Yeah. He's going to have people around him to help him.
Yeah. And by the way, Warnock has $22.2 million in the bank, according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. So, and it's we're just now getting into the third quarter. And September is when voters really start to pay attention. So it's going to be a spending free for all in Georgia come October.
There's not going to be a single minute. There will not be a single minute of ad time available.
That's right. For
anybody who's trying to sell their product or service, unless you are in a campaign. Between Fox News, if you were selling widgets and you decided you wanted to go on Fox News, you're not getting any airtime, sir. Whatever your marketing plan was for your private company, scrap that. Between Stacey Abrams and Raphael Warnock and Brian Kemp and Herschel Walker, there will be no airtime available on any cable news or any other station. Period. No. We are in for the most raucous commercial breaks in Georgia television history.
Well, and you think, and to think it couldn't have gotten worse than 2020, because remember 2020, it was like every single ad. I mean, I remember watching. I was watching like Georgia football one night, and there was one night where it was like 4 ads in a row. It was Warnock, then Ossoff, then Loeffler, then the NRSC, and I was just like, oh my God, make it stop. Right. And I think I might keep a tally this year because, like I said, I'm still getting Georgia ads because I use DirecTV Stream. And never mind. I can't vote in Georgia anymore, so forget about it. So Jen Jordan, which I swear to God I thought it was Jordan, but apparently it's Jordan, is come under a little bit of fire for saying that she will not defend Georgia's abortion laws in court if she wins the attorney general race this fall. And I seem to recall there was a time where we had a similar instance. I want to say it was when Thurbert Baker was attorney general, where he wouldn't defend a Georgia law in court. And I want to say I think maybe Governor Perdue had to had to get outside counsel to represent Georgia, if I recall correctly. So this is not wouldn't necessarily be unprecedented, but
is costly.
Yeah, it is costly, and I mean, look, I was talking to someone today, and I separately about the abortion issue, and he talked about Casey, and everybody focuses on Roe, but nobody wants to talk about Casey, where there were limitations on abortion because of the Supreme Court, because of the ruling in Casey, and it was based on viability. And Georgia, while at 15 weeks being the current law, that's not far off
about to be 6,
which I disagree with. But 15 weeks, being what it is, that's close enough to viability. I'm curious because I think I've said before, it's the extremes on this issue that turn me off. And so what if I would like Jen Jordan to, and look, if you want to come on and we can have a discussion about it, I'd love it. Because I'm generally in agreement that there should be some access to abortion. That said, where is the limit? Where is the limit? If you're a Democrat, where is the limit?
Well, I think the answer for her is wherever she decides. I had an interaction with Josh McLaurin, State Rep Josh McLaurin, who's running for state Senate now, I believe in Senate District 14, where I pointed out the Savannah Morning News had an op-ed that criticized her heavily for picking and choosing which law she wants to defend. And when I did that, I just basically said, read this. And Representative McLaurin responded, hey, she has a right to do this. And I'm like, that's not really fair, because you don't, as a member of that office, you're not a part of the checks and balances designed under our legislative branch, executive branch / judicial branch. You don't get to pick and choose here, because what will happen, the net effect of this is the law will be defended. The governor is just going to go hire outside counsel, and the legislature is going to support that. They will appropriate the funds.
Right.
And so it will be far more costly to the state of Georgia to do it. And it's sort of like your job, right? I mean, that's why we have an attorney general, is to defend the state in these lawsuits, and to defend the legislature when they decide they wanted to go down this path. Representative McLaurin made the point to me that, if she believes that the law is unconstitutional and that the state constitution has some provision that I don't read the state constitution and come to the same conclusion, that there's a right to privacy in there that allows for abortion. Well, the proper place for that decision to be made is in the court, and you are not the judge. You're the counselor for the state, and that's the job you're running for. So to have, I think it's dangerous to have an attorney general pick and choose, especially something that big, because there is no limit at this point. Why do you have a legislature if you're going to pass laws that are going to be ignored by the AG? It is a knock on on the balance of powers in our state, and I think it shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what the role of that is. And I think it is telling that it was a Democrat before that decided to pick and choose. I've never seen Chris Carr ever make any type of comment saying, if the legislature passes this law, I'm not going to enforce it. That's not his job. He's not a member of the legislature. She was a member of the legislature, and she lost this debate against her best efforts. I mean, she was front and center. She questioned Ed Setzler in committee. She was in the well in the Senate speaking against the bill when it came out, the passage, and she did everything she possibly could. At the end of the day, she lost the debate. Now to go into a statewide office and say, I will ignore this law that I voted against, but still passed and was signed into law, that's just wrong.
No, I mean,
it's just not the role of the AG.
No, and my personal view on this issue aside, we both sides talk about the rule of law, but when it comes to enforcing the rule of law, they want to pick and choose which laws they're going to enforce, and that irks me. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
It irks me.
Yeah, moving along, because this one is of particular interest to me, because I see here that Georgia Republican Party Chairman David Schaefer met with Ali Alexander, and I'm going to dive into this one a little bit if you'll just give me some space here, Scott. Ali Alexander.
Tell the people.
Ali Alexander goes by this is a name he has recently adopted. He used to go by the name of Ali Akbar. Ali is someone who was kind of well known amongst conservative activists in DC, yeah.
Also in Georgia.
Ali was a fixture at CPAC, anywhere where young
Tea Party movement,
and he developed a reputation for being somewhat of a con man. Had actually been convicted in the past for I'm trying to find what it was because I don't really remember, but it was oh God, what was it? Ali Alexander? That's what he comes. That's his Wikipedia page. He was convicted in like the 2000s for essentially misappropriating funds or something like that. I don't remember what it was off the top of my head, and I'm trying to do this quickly. But he, yeah, I mean, so he latched himself on to another thing, which was the Stop the Steal stuff, and has become one of the individuals who has been a source of information. How reliable that information is, I would question. But he appeared in this photo with David Schaefer he tweeted it out. Ali, there's a screenshot that I see here. He tweeted it out on November 25th, 2020. Said he had a productive meeting with Georgia Republicans Chairman David Schaefer today with some of our national Stop the Steal leadership team. We expressed some of the sentiments of frustrated voters and proposed solutions. We'll keep everyone posted. And sure enough, there is Ali, interestingly enough, wearing a very orange sweatshirt, which almost looks like a prison jumpsuit, which in my opinion, probably where he belongs, and David Schaefer. Dude, resign.
You're talking about David Schaefer?
Yes, just resign.
Yeah.
Because you're...
Well, tell the people what happened with Ali on the January 6th, because he has to. He actually has the smoking gun text message, right, about January 6th.
I don't. Because that came up in the hearing yesterday, and I wasn't able to watch the entire hearing yesterday because I had other stuff going on. But Ali, there was a text message that he had sent where he said that he had it on good authority that the president was going to show up, was going to come down with them to the Capitol, which has been a major source of like basically back and forth. But it's looking more and more like that's indeed what the plan was until smarter people won the day on that one.
So on January the 5th, Ali Alexander sent a text message to whom I don't know. I didn't watch the hearing, but I'm reading a story where it says Trump is supposed – this is what the text message read. Trump is supposed to order us to the Capitol at the end of his speech, but we will see. Right? So he predicts that Trump is going to say, I'm going to go down there with you, which is what Trump said. I'm going to be down there with you. And let's head down there now and we'll go. And so, and then there's been other testimony which is now under attack because of some other incredible statements that were made about Trump trying to grab a steering wheel and what have you, trying to go down to the Capitol. But he did actually say the words in his speech, because I heard him. I watched that speech that day where he said, I will be down there with you. And it's also the time frame where Rudy Giuliani said it will be a trial by combat.
That's right.
And urging the crowd to take action. So, but Ali actually texts, Trump is supposed to order us to the Capitol at the end of his speech, predicting what actually happened the day before. So I have all along, I've maintained this. Well, there's no proof that this was an organized or pre-planned thing. It was spontaneous, right?
Yeah.
If it was actually planned, and this text message from Ali Alexander makes it seem like it was pre-planned, there are more problems here.
Yeah,
and need to be worked out.
Yeah, and source of and clarifying here, he was convicted of felony property theft and credit card abuse charges in 2007 and 2008, and so I remembered it was something. And I'm generally a believer in second chance type stuff, but Ali, let's say some of his activities predating what happened on January 6th were questionable, highly to say the least. But Ali, and I also want to take one other point real fast because this has come up. Ali had said if I recall correctly, had said along the lines he had met with Congressman Biggs when Congressman Biggs came to Georgia back in December of 2020. And I think I've said this before, but Congressman Biggs is a friend of mine. Have a lot of disagreements with him, more so than I used to. But I know for a fact that Ali did not meet with Congressman Biggs in Georgia. And the reason I know is because I picked Congressman Biggs up from the airport that morning and dropped him off that afternoon. He was in Georgia for all of 5 hours. And considering I had met Ali Alexander on several different occasions, I would have seen Ali Akbar, because that's his damn name. I would have seen Ali Akbar, and I would have very, very...
But he identifies as Alexander.
Yeah, well... Unless he's legally changed it, his name is Ali Alexander, and maybe he has. I don't know. But Ali, if I would have seen Ali, and I would have very quickly gotten Congressman Biggs away from Ali because he is bad news.
Right. But we do know he met with David Schaefer.
But we do know he met with David Schaefer. Yes. So, but no, I mean, look, it's just embarrassing that the Georgia Republican Party still has this man in leadership. And look, I would say it's embarrassing that the Georgia Republican Party has not outright condemned the constant refrain from some Trump reporters. Joe Biden won the election. You don't have to like it. That's fine. But he won the election, and Buzz, Scott, you know this just as well as any of us do. There has been no credible allegations of voter fraud, at least not on a wide scale. In Georgia.
Well, yeah, on the wide scale, there are some credible things that I have seen, but they don't get to 12,000 votes.
Right, and I am talking on a wide scale.
Yeah,
and so as far as it goes, it is the Georgia Republican Party, especially considering what I believe is the shift in demographics and the competitiveness of the state, would do themselves well to distance themselves from this level of crazy. But they're not doing that. None of my business. I'm just going to sit here and drink my Diet Pepsi. So.
I think we've beat that particular topic. We'll move on.
Yeah, we'll move on. So this one's of particular interest to Scott and I because it was the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Our good friend Greg Bluestein, who, and I want to be clear here. We pick on Bluestein. I like Bluestein. He's a good guy. I actually have his book over here.
I like Bluestein too.
But he apparently has. He tweeted out something, the Jolt this morning, and the AJC team talked about how Democrats have taken efforts to get rid of the statue of Alexander Hamilton Stevens in Statuary Hall here in Washington, D.C. And both Scott and I take issue with that. Scott, you want to explain why?
Yeah, we do. So the thrust of the article, it's a quick hit, and in the Jolt, if you don't, you read the Jolt because you get a pulse on the daily basis of what's happening in Georgia. You should read the Jolt in the AJC, even if you disagree with the AJC and what they stand for, and you think they're a liberal rag. You should still read the Jolt. It's a bunch of stories, quick hit style, and this one was about Bethune, Mary Bethune, getting a statue from Florida, replacing a Confederate general. And how Florida decided they wanted to replace their Confederate general with basically a African-American woman who is famous in Georgia for a lot of different reasons, good reasons. Bethune-Cookman College exists today because of her. That's what the thrust was. But then they threw in this line at the end of that particular quick hit that said, Democrats have been trying to get rid of the Alexander Hamilton Stevens statue that represents Georgia in Statuary Hall. And I'm like, excuse me, sir. Let me tell you the story about my friend Jason Pye, who called me one day and said, in my last several weeks in office, hey, I'm embarrassed every time I walk into Statuary Hall and I see Alexander Hamilton Stevens there, who was the author of the Cornerstone speech and basically said that black people were only fit for slavery. That was the only thing they were good for. Those were his words. I'm paraphrasing very closely to what he said.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what?
He said
this will be my last bill.
It was the natural state of black people to be in slavery. That's where they belonged, is essentially what he said. And then slavery was the cornerstone of the Confederacy. Right.
It basically is the foundation cornerstone of this new nation that they were trying to establish by seceding from the United States.
I called Scott. Oddly enough, I was driving through Richmond, Virginia, when I called Scott, and I was like, which was, for those of you who aren't history buffs, was the capital of the Confederacy. And I said, every time I walk into Statuary Hall, I get pissed off. And Scott, I talked to him.
I remember the conversation.
I talked him into dropping a resolution. James Salzer, another good friend, or good friend of all of ours, wrote a story about it. Scott did not mention me by name for some reason. I don't know why. I guess it's because he hadn't cleared it with me.
I wasn't sure if you wanted people to know at the time.
Sure.
I didn't out people. But I did say it wasn't an original idea, that a friend called me and asked me to do it.
Yeah. But
and so I didn't mention you by name.
Yeah, that's all good. I mean, Bluestein subsequently.
I am now, though.
Bluestein subsequently knows it was me. I told him. He said he thought it was me. But the fact that the AJC is basically saying it's Democrats who tried to do this. Yeah, Democrats may have tried, but this was you introduced the bill. You introduced the resolution. Yeah, you introduced the bill to get it done. It's kind of, I mean, it's just really bad form to say only Democrats.
I think it's probably. I think Tia Mitchell wrote the story last year, or not last year, the year before last, about Al Williams. Al Williams was my second signer on my resolution. Al Williams decided to take his name off, so I went to Erica Thomas, and she signed on. She was the chairman of the Republican or the Democratic caucus at the time. Yeah. So I asked her to sign on as a member of leadership of the Democrats. So I replaced Al with her, but the bill was bipartisan. I had 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats in my top 6, and it was 3 white people and 3 African Americans. And I thought it was a nice opportunity for us to show some unity around replacing the statue. I recommended Martin Luther King Jr. And what I've learned since then is that, there are a lot of people who have a lot of feelings about Martin Luther King Jr. already having an actual memorial on the mall, having a bust on display in the Capitol, and that maybe there's another Georgian that can be honored similarly to the ways that he's already been honored.
Yeah.
So but I recommended him, and I hope that they find somebody suitable. It could be Hank Aaron for all I care. I think that would be an excellent choice. But there needs to be, this is something that I think needs to be clarified as well, is at no point did Pye or myself advocate for destroying the statue of Alexander Hamilton Stevens. We actually in the bill put in language to say that we would find a proper place for it to be displayed in its historical context. And so we're not destroying history. We're taking it out of a place of honor. We only get 2 statues of people to put in as a state into Statuary Hall to honor 2 amazing Georgians. And I don't believe that Alexander Hamilton Stevens is the best representative of all of Georgia history.
No.
one of two people that we can place in that place of honor.
Yeah.
So put him in a place where he can be displayed in its historical context, and find somebody else to honor the place there.
And the others, go ahead, Scott.
And I think finding a civil rights leader would be great too.
Yeah.
Having the ability to have somebody who fought for human liberty as opposed to restricting it would be a great way to replace that statue.
I don't care if they put a statue of a cute puppy up. I just want that statue gone. I mean, and look, it was, this is not the first time I've advocated for the removal of statues. I've done this in other places as well. And including when I lived in Covington, where I lived for 15 years, I co-authored a piece, a letter to the editor with a local Black Lives Matter activist to remove the statue honoring Confederate soldiers on the Covington Square, and the goal, by the way, was to take it and move it to the Confederate cemetery in Covington. That was his suggestion. I had other suggestions, but that was his suggestion, and I didn't have a problem with it. And as long as this is not as long as it's not in the town square in Covington, which is offensive to about 40% of the population, this shouldn't be controversial. And I don't understand why people hold on to this.
Well, I think it's a reaction. It's a natural reaction to the woke culture, right? We're not allowed to look at our history.
It's us versus
with anything
them.
Other than, well, it's not just us versus them, but we're supposed to look at people who live through historical times through the lens of modern values, and which is just a wrong way of looking at history. That's why Thomas Jefferson regularly gets vilified these days. Without Thomas Jefferson, there is no Martin Luther King Jr.
Correct.
Everything's connected in a chain, like the old PBS series where you start working your way through history and one thing leads to another. We're all connected, and we got to where we are as a result of works of someone else, but we can't put our values on historical figures like that, other than to say whether or not we're going to honor them. Yeah. We can study them. We can put them in proper historical context. We can say that we don't agree with them now, but I think what happens today is a lot of people see the effort to remove Confederate statues in particular as an attack on history.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's let's place these somewhere else so that they can be displayed appropriately, or put the context around them that is missing a lot of times.
Yeah.
Stone Mountain's a great example of that, by the way. I mean, it is a giant monument to the Confederacy and there's little to no context on what it meant for the South during those times and what was actually at stake. This is a gigantic glorification of some guys who fought for the wrong side.
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw this the other day. There was a segment on Fox News about someone who complained that Monticello was going woke because they dedicate substantial resources to informing visitors about Jefferson's involvement in slavery, and the person who was on there was Jeffrey Tucker, who's used to be at Fee and is somewhere else now. But I was a little disgusted by that because I didn't consider informing people about how complicated Jefferson was as an individual to be a bad thing. But whatever. I've been to Monticello. I loved it.
Well, I think his complaint, and I saw the piece. Actually, a state representative shared the clip on his Facebook page, so I saw it as a result. And his complaint was that they consistently knock him down. They don't talk about any of the things that he was really well known for. He was known for it to be an inventor, as an example. And the people that do the tours there are instructed to tell people that, no, he was just a tinkerer. He didn't really invent anything, which I don't think is true.
I don't think that's accurate either, because I went to Monticello not too long ago, and they have, I don't think I had a guided tour. I think I just walked around, but they have stuff literally everywhere about Jefferson's sort of like creative mind. including his desk that had, as he would write, it would make copies of it. So he could have copies of his own correspondence and things like that. I mean, I don't think that that's accurate, but whatever. We have more topics to discuss. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I'll be there next year. I'll tell you, when I get back from visiting on my road trip next year.
Does Chris West have a shot in Georgia's 2nd congressional district? This is an interesting question that Scott has posed in our agenda for the evening. And I'm going to say no, because looking at Cook Political Report, it's a D+3 district. That's the partisan voter index on the district. It is rated likely Democratic. And for Cook Political Report, where I'm reading this from, and you can go see this too at cookpolitical.com, he would have to be downgraded to leans Democrat and then toss up to be what they consider competitive. And it's not to say that likely Democrat is not competitive. It's just this dude has been there for so long. It's a D+3 PVI, so it tilts very much Democratic. I don't see it happening. Do you?
So Sanford Bishop is who we're talking about, him knocking off, right?
Yeah.
And Sanford Bishop has been there for a really long time. The district is a +3, but in a +5 Republican year. Is it possible? I think obviously the top of the ticket's going to drive a lot of turnout. Both sides. We've seen the money figures from Raphael Warnock and from Stacey Abrams. I think that works against Chris West. But when I've been watching him and he is a really compelling candidate. Like, this guy is a quality candidate. He's not a kook. He's speaking from the heart. He's talking about these issues in a intelligent manner. I think he deserves a lot more attention than he's getting, which is why I asked the question, does he have a shot? I don't know if he does or not. Probably not. I hope he does, right? Because, again, I play for the red team. But I do think he deserves a lot more attention than what he's getting based upon what I'm seeing. And I wanted to bring it to our audience's attention because I think that's a campaign where if it gets close come September, October, that there are a lot more resources should be poured into winning that seat. If you're David Schaefer right now and you want to put a feather in your cap, you're trying to figure out a way to get Chris West elected, right? Obviously, you want Kemp to win, you want Herschel to win, and our other statewide offices, you want Chris Carter to get reelected. You want all that to happen, but if you pull off a coup like that, where you are actually getting Sanford Bishop out of the U.S. Congress, replaced by somebody like Chris West, that is a major feather in your cap and something that you can actually hang your hat on.
Something I'll note real fast, the generic congressional ballot has, according to Real Clear Politics average, has the Republicans up 1.9. But I do want to note here a couple quick things I'll note. The Economist YouGov have Democrats up 3. Politico Morning Consult have Democrats up 4. New York Times Siena have Republicans up 1. There are a couple of polls here which I don't consider to be from solid pollsters, as Insider Advantage and Rasmussen reports have Republicans up 8. Monmouth has Republicans up 2. Harvard Harris has it.
Is that just in Georgia or is that nationwide?
This is nationwide. And Emerson has Republicans up 3. Only 3 of these polls have weigh likely voters, and that's Insider Advantage and Rasmussen, neither of whom I consider credible. New York Times did weigh likely voters, Republicans up 1. I think this fall is going to be a lot closer than people think it is. And Republicans, I think, have a majority baked in the cake in the House. I don't think that runs through Georgia too. I would be shocked if Sanford Bishop was knocked out this fall.
Yeah.
Stranger things have happened. Stranger things have happened.
I don't. Right. And when I say +5 for Republicans, I think that's here. I don't necessarily think that that's nationwide.
Sure.
I get a sense on the ground watching some of these campaigns, and that's something I think that we here at Peach Pundit need to be a better job of doing, is watching outside the metro area for races like that. Because I think if there's hope for us picking up a seat, that's where it is.
If there's one thing I've learned, it's that Georgia, the people who live outside of Metro Atlanta tend to not care about Metro Atlanta too much.
Right.
Right. They consider Metro Atlanta's problems to be exactly that, Metro Atlanta's problems, and not problems in the rest of the state.
Yeah, we're the piggy bank for the metro area. The rest of the state is.
Yeah, very much so. So, an interesting news, and I wish Buzz was on here to discuss this because I know Buzz would wear this as a badge of pride. That Georgia Tech is seeing its undergraduate tuition and fees come down compared to 3 years ago.
Incredible.
It's a 19% reduction. Tuition and fees will be $11,764 compared to $12,682 3 years ago. Again, that's a 19% reduction when adjusted for inflation. And, you talk about the cost of education and, good on Georgia Tech. I cannot believe I'm saying those words.
We got him to say it, Buzz. I put this in here for Buzz, right? I wanted Buzz to have his victory lap celebratory moment. I'm so sad he can't be here with us tonight because this was for Buzz. So Buzz, we're lifting you up here, and even some of our friends of the podcast, like Bert Reeves. Congratulations to Georgia Tech for showing what being mindful of costs can do, and also growing your enrollment, because that's a huge part of this. They had enrollment growth. They took on additional students. They're using their facilities more efficiently. So Ali Akbar says, the president over there, he's only been president for a couple of years now, says that fiscal prudence made it possible, along with enrollment growth and state investment. That's great. I think we live in a time right now where a school like Georgia Tech is needed more than ever with the things that they do, some of the amazing things they do there as a research institution into some of the more complex technological challenges that we have facing us as a nation. And they pump out quality, ready to go to work employees from day one that they graduate. So kudos to those guys over there. Well done. Buzz, wish you were here so you could celebrate, but we'll do it. I actually got Jason to say praiseworthy words towards Georgia Tech.
Your football team still sucks.
It was worth it.
Your football team still sucks, but the North Avenue Trade School, has done something right, and so kudos to Georgia Tech for once for lowering its cost of tuition.
We just need them to. Good.
One thing I was going to say,
Go ahead.
And we talk about education a lot, and I think one thing I think a lot of people don't realize is how much we overemphasize the need for secondary or post-secondary education, like college. I just, at some point we talk about free community college tuition or forgiving student loans and so on and so forth. And I know we don't want to open a can of worms and have a discussion about that right now, but credential inflation is a real thing, and not everyone is cut out to go to college. And that whenever government subsidizes something, the cost of that service or good necessarily rises, and we've seen that in healthcare and all sort in education, and I think that's something we need to be really mindful of as we look at the way we do education in the United States.
Right. And potentially another feather in the cap for Brian Kemp to be able to point to, his policies are working. If this was a state investment, I think the Republicans in the legislature and the governor's mansion have a right to say, look, we're doing something right. So,
maybe. I don't know. I don't know enough about it to say whether that's accurate or not, but I do know enough to say that we have some people to thank. Before we go, I want to make sure folks, if you want to become one of our Patreons, go to patreon.com/Peach Pundit, and you can join John Vestal, Brant Frost, Reed Powell, Benjamin Hurst, Sam Thomas as being Patreons of the Peach Pundit Podcast for as low as $5 per month, but you can go as high as $100. There are 4 tiers. You can pick one and become one of our Peach Treons. Is that? I'm running with it. I'm going
wow.
with it.
You don't even have kids. And you're making dad jokes.
It turns out I'm really good at dad jokes.
If you're listening to this right now, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said honestly, I'm really good at dad jokes.
Yeah, you should have kids. If you're listening to this right now, my question to you is, why haven't you signed up? If you're not one of those 5 guys, why haven't you signed up? Tell me. Send me an email. at Scott.Turner23. Scott spelled weird, right? Scott Turner, SCOT.Turner23@gmail.com. Tell me why you're not subscribed. Just do me that favor. Or just go to patreon.com/Peach Pundit and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. It'd really help us out a ton.
If the whole thing about you not subscribing is the quality of the podcast, this is why we need you to subscribe so we can figure out because the podcast is a work in progress. When we started this podcast last year, it was kind of like, hey, Buzz, Scott, you guys want to do a podcast? And yeah, that's kind of how it all started. And Scott wants to continue it because I think this is what. This is one of my favorite things that I look forward to every week is conversing with Buzz and Scott, both of whom have been good friends for a really long time and have remained good friends. And despite our constant back and forth, we I think we all three of us would consider each other very good friends. And it's been fun to do, and it's something I want to keep doing. And but. We might all have jobs, but
there's costs.
This stuff doesn't come free. So, so if you spare extra few bucks, please kick them our way, so we can continue to improve the podcast. And we're hopeful that you'll do us that kindness, and we'll thank you and publicly as well. So once again, John Vestal, Brant Frost, Reed Powell, Benjamin Hurst, and Sam Thomas, thank you so much for your patronage. We appreciate it. And that's pretty much all the time we have for tonight. Buzz, we wish you well. Hope to see you back next week. And thank you all for watching. Make sure you check out peachpundit.com. Find us on Facebook and Twitter. And we'll have this podcast up hopefully in the next couple hours. So peace out. Take it easy. We'll see you next week.